بين الحرمين حرمين مقام حسين حرمين مقام أبا الفضل بين الحرمين حرمين مقام حسين حرمين مقام أبا الفضل مجدود حسين مجدود أبا الفضل مجدود حسين مجدود أبا الفضل
اشتفا بگیره.
Before we begin, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states that if you're in a gathering or in a majlis, if you create space for others, Allah will open up Jannah for you. This is in the Quran, not my saying. Therefore, if you can please come forward as much as you can with the recitation of salawat upon Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The second, to remember the Lady of Light, Fatimatul Zahra. The third, to display our love towards Sayyid al-Shuhada, Aba Abdullah Al-Hussain, with the loudest of your voices. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله والحمد حقه كما يستحقه حمدا كثيرا. وأعوذ به من شر نفسي إن النفس لأمارة بالسوء إلا ما رحم ربي. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الخلق وخاتم الأنبياء وسيد المرسلين سيدنا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المطهرين. صلى الله عليك سيدي ومولاي يا أبا عبد الله. السلام عليك وعلى جدك وأبيك وعلى أمك وأخيك وعلى التسعة المعصومين من بنيك. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. صلوات اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. قال الله العظيم في كتابه الكريم وهو أحسن القائلين وأصدق الصادقين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. نحن نقص عليك نبأهم بالحق إنهم فتية آمنوا بربهم وزدناهم هدى. آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم. For the purification of the soul, the enlightenment of the hearts, for the acceptance of our deeds, and for the hastening of the reappearance of the awaited Saviour, Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif. Enlighten your souls, purify your hearts and the atmosphere with the recitation of salawat upon Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Respected elders, sisters and brothers, Salamun alaykum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. This is an intrinsic, delicate stage of the life of the human being. It is characterized with many challenges, but also great potential. And it's a stage that those going through it, or those supporting those experience it, can learn much from the saga and the epic of Karbala. How do we become Hussaini youth? You and I recognize the time of youth and adolescence is considered to be one of the most exciting but also challenging times of the human being. When you and I examine this critical stage in our life cycle, we find that many people speak about the brilliance of the youth, the importance of getting the youth involved, not neglecting the youth. And then when it comes to Muharram, there is a term that you and I need to understand, and that is striving to become Hussaini youth, to learn from the sacrifice and the legacy and the teachings of Sayyid al-Shuhada, Aba Abdullah al-Hussain salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. There isn't a shadow of a doubt when you and I speak about youthfulness, about those who go through this delicate stage, of its importance. Because Amir al-Mu'mineen wa Mawla al-Muttaqeen, Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi, in Ghurar al-Hikam says, Shay'an la yu'rafu qadruhuma illa man faqadahuma. Two things, you will not know its value until you lose it. Al-afiyah wa-shabab, health and youthfulness. Indeed, there is a discussion that is going on in many of our communities today, a discussion of pivotal importance. You speak to the elders of the community, you speak to the ulama, you speak to the activists and the thinkers. They tell you we must look after the youth, we must nurture the youth, we must develop a strong youth presence within our centers. Yet the Muslim world and many of our communities are going through perhaps a youth crisis. What do we mean? Today there are many youths who are disgruntled. There are youths who are asking important questions. There are some who unfortunately began a journey of disconnection with their faith. There are some who've turned against their religion, God forbid, online or in front of others. There are some, unfortunately, who do not attend the mosque or don't take part in any of the activities provided by the community. I tell you, when you examine the world and the challenges they're facing and this barrage of movements, you truly begin to appreciate the delicate nature of this subject. LGBTQ, atheism, when it comes to those within the religion and within the madhab, who are casting doubts in the mind of our youth. This and much more presents one of the most intriguing discussions that you and I can have without a shadow of a doubt. And it's a discussion of great relevance. Because if you're a youth, you need to what? You need to become Hussaini. If you're not a youth and if past the youthful age, no doubt you have a responsibility to ensure that those who are within the community, either within your family or others, also become Hussaini. If you're young and yet to become youth, it is an aspiration without a shadow of a doubt. But at the outset, I would like to make something absolutely clear. Often, discussions regarding youth are full of scolding. Why don't you do this? Why are you not doing this? You're wrong here. You're not doing the right thing here. I would like to begin this discussion by congratulating our youth. Without a shadow of a doubt, those sisters and brothers in all our different communities who are facing this barrage of ideologies and challenges, may Allah bless them and reward them. I know it's not difficult. I was raised in the West as well. I was 11 when we left Islamic Republic of Iran and we went to the United Kingdom. I know exactly the hardship and the challenges that some of our youth are going through today. Therefore, at the outset, we would like to tell our youth how proud are we of them. Those youth who despite the easy way to slip and to follow shaitanic routes, they stick to principles. Yes, they may fall from time to time, but they realize the beauty of their religion, the beauty of all the instructions, and what? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's guidance over them. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless the youth who pray. Bless the youth who are volunteers, who take part in different initiatives in the community, who establish different programs in the community, who take part in the madrasa, the sisters who wear hijab, those who are struggling to wear the hijab, maybe thinking about wearing the hijab, the sisters who are active, all those who are making positive contributions in society. It is established from this particular minbar that we are proud of them, that everything that we say is because of our love towards them, is because of our affinity towards them, without a shadow of a doubt. And indeed, it is this positive attitude that the Prophet of Islam, Rasul al-A'zam Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, would like you and I to approach the youth. Do not dismiss the youth. Do not belittle the youth. Do not put them on the side. Rasulullah's main companions at the beginning were all youngsters. Amir al-Mu'mineen was how old when the Prophet of Islam empowered him to prepare food for Quraysh? 13 years of age. A 13-year-old is responsible for what? Feeding 40 individuals, taking care of all the proceedings. Similarly, do you know that the man sent to Medina to invite people towards Islam was 19 years of age? Mus'ab ibn Umair, Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayh, was a man who had a beautiful voice. He would recite the Quran wonderfully. But he came from an aristocratic family, a family who despised the fact that he was a Muslim. Therefore they imprisoned him. He was able to escape. Rasulullah said, I want you to go to Yathrib, invite people to Islam. Who cares if you're young? You have a great potential. Mus'ab goes. When he reaches Yathrib, there is the tribes of Aus and Khazraj. They are all established, elderly leaders of that very famous city. Yet they're not fazed. Here is a young man who says to them, do you want guidance? Come, I will recite the Quran. I will teach you Islam. Yes, he laid the groundwork for Rasulullah to make the migration and to Muslims to settle in Medina. You say to me, is this an isolated example? No. A man by the name of Itab ibn Usayd. Have you heard of him? He's 18 years of age. He is the first Muslim governor of Mecca. Utab was 18, and Rasulullah, after the conquest of Mecca, said, I am placing this Utab as my governor in Mecca. Ajib. Mecca, with all the Quraysh, with all those individuals enraged with anger, how can an 18-year-old lead us? They came to Rasulullah and said, Ya Rasulullah, we cannot accept this young man as our leader. He's too young. The Prophet of God answers beautifully, and a constitution that you and I must be learning from. He says, لَيْسَ الْأَفْضَلُ هُوَ الْأَكْبَرُ بَلِ الْأَكْبَرُ هُوَ الْأَفْضَلُ. What does that mean? He says, it is not the one who is older who is more virtuous, but the one who is more virtuous is the one who is greater. The Prophet of Islam says, you may think differently. I think to empower the youth. Therefore he placed this man. You look at the biography of Amir al-Mu'mineen, the biography of the A'immah, peace and blessings be upon them. The sixth holy Imam, Ja'far ibn Muhammad al-Sadiq, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. A man by the name of Abu Ja'far Hawal, who is one of the Shia of the Imam in Basra, comes to him. Imam says to him, have you invited people towards the madhab of Ahl al-Bayt and Basra? Abu Ja'far says, yes, Yabna Rasulullah, but it's a struggle because some of them are not willing to accept this madhab. Imam says, don't worry about the people. Focus only on the youth because the future is the youth. Give the teachings towards the adolescents, those youthful youth, yes, make sure you pass on this message. That's why the glad tiding of the Messenger of Islam is the following. He says, I would like to give you a wasiyah. أوصيكم بالشباب خيرا فإنهم أرق أفئدة. The Prophet says, I would like to advise you, make sure you look after your youth. Don't neglect them. Don't put them on the side, because they have tender hearts and they yearn towards righteousness quickly. Subhanallah. The Prophet says their hearts are willing to what? Accept the truth. They are determined to find the right path. That's why I say to all mu'mineen and mu'minat struggling with their youth, parents, jamaats, presidents, everybody, look at youth as opportunity. Don't complain and say our youth are this, they don't do this. Look at them as vital tools for the betterment of society. Look at them as lights that would guide many individuals. That's why I would like to discuss the topic of becoming Hussaini youth by looking at the number of questions as follows. Number one, what are the psychological changes that a male or a female go through when it comes to their youthfulness? Number two, when it comes to this Quran, what does the Quran say regarding the youth? And what two stories are presented in which the term youth is mentioned in the Quran? Number three, of great importance, why are youth, some of them, not coming to mosque? What are the reasons? And in addition to this, what are the challenges that they're facing in modern day era? Number four, how can they become Hussaini? What are the 5 steps that the youth need to embrace to become Hussaini youth? And what? Number 5, what lessons can be learnt from the youth of Karbala, including a man by the name of Abu Bakr ibn Ali, as well as the other sons of Amir al-Mu'mineen and the sons of Sayyid al-Shuhada, Aba Abdullah al-Hussain salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. When it comes to the changes that youths go through, you and I know there are physical transformations within adolescence. But also there are psychological, that which is related to the mental state, the way they think, the way they function. To understand this is crucial, because if we wish to tackle some of the challenges that some of our youth are having in different parts of the world, irrespective of where they are, because some people are saying, is this only, for example, towards the youth who are here in Dar es Salaam? No. Is this for the youth of Europe? No. For the youth in Middle East? No. Because in the world which is what? Which is globalized, the message is nearly the same. In other words, many of the youth are facing similar challenges. What kind of psychological changes do they go through? Yes, number one, there is a tendency towards what? Towards attraction towards the opposite gender. Meaning that this kind of tendency or pulling power towards the opposite gender is enhanced by the environment, enhanced by a number of stimuli, where you recognize that attraction becomes more and more powerful as they go through the youthful age. Number two, the way they think intellectually begins to differ. What do we mean? They begin to want to think independently. They become inquisitive. You heard of the term, the why generation? Everybody wants to know why. For everything, there is what? A question. They begin to want to assert independence. They begin to somehow want autonomy. They say, I am my own adult, because they're moving from a child towards adult stage, isn't it? They wish to assert themselves. And that is why this is seen in their behavior. Sometimes their behavior reflects this notion that if they're not fulfilled in this way, if their answers are not necessarily, or their questions are not presented with adequate answers, if they're not satisfied, they may react in different manners to assert their adulthood, to make sure that somehow they're seen as responsible adults who make their own decisions. Similarly, today scientists say what? The age of youthfulness is the age of energy, optimism and strength. Meaning what? Meaning that there is much effort available. They have a lot of energy. If it is not channeled in the right way, it can be misused. And do you know who's waiting for the youth, boy or girl, to turn into that stage? The shaitan, no doubt. Waiting for that moment in order to try to entice them to do that which is against the Almighty subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why, on a side note, when it comes to, for example, ziyarah, when it comes to Hajj, I speak to some of our youth. I say, why is it that you don't go to Hajj? They say, brother, this is for the elderly. I say, what do you mean? It's too tiring. Wallah, come to the day of Arafah and you'll see the elderly struggling to stay awake in the heat of Arabia. Hajj is for everyone, but especially for the youth. I tell you, why has Allah made it wajib once? So that when you go to Hajj, you are empowered, the fuel is given to you so that you can live your life successfully. If you go as a youth, you'll benefit all your life from the barakah of Hajj. It will be immensely useful for you. Yes, that's why somebody asks, what is the Arabic word for youth? Fata. Yes, is the Arabic word often used to refer to this important stage of the life of the human being. When you look at the Holy Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the word fata in 2 occasions. Please understand this, because it will help us discuss the challenges that many of our youth are going through. The first story in which the word fata is mentioned is Prophet Ibrahim, ala nabiyyina wa ala alihi wa alayhi afdal salatu wassalam, when he was young, when he thought that he can and he was successful in destroying the idols. And you all know the story, yes? When he destroyed all the idols of the people, where was this? Apparently in an area known as Babil, Hilla, where I am from, yes, in case you want to know, yes. Ibrahim was there, the people said leave, because it's the day in which we honor what? Our gods. They left the city, Ibrahim destroyed the idols except the biggest one, and he placed the axe on the shoulders of the biggest one. When they returned, they said, Man fa'ala hadha bi'alihatina. Who did this to our lords? The response from people, they said, Fatan yuqalu lahu Ibrahim. Is a youth. His name is Ibrahim. Number 1. Number 2, chapter 18 is referred and is named after the story of a youth who are known as Ashabul Kahf. You and I have heard of the story. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes them. There were 7 young men who did what? Who realized they were not able to perform their duties, responsibilities before Allah, their worship of Allah, and therefore they ran away seeking refuge in a cave, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would praise them in over 25 verses in the Holy Quran, in chapter 18. Amongst the best of these verses describing the excellence of these youth, نحن نقص عليك نبأهم بالحق. It is we who give you their story truthfully. إنهم فتية آمنوا بربهم وزدناهم هدى. They were youth who believed in their Lord, and we increased them in guidance. Let me ask you a question. Quran tells us when they went to sleep, what happened to the sun? Because one of the ayat describing the ashab of Kahf, the 7 sleepers of the cave, says that when the sun would rise, it would what? It would move to the extent that deliberately would not touch them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would instruct the sun to somehow swerve so it does not burn their bodies. And similarly when it sets, do you know what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying? You obey me, I will make the sun obey you. You listen to me, I will make everything subservient to you. The earth, the sun, the animals, the plants. In the recognition that both sets of stories use the word fata. But what does the stories tell us about youth? You may say to me. Give me a conclusion, you may ask. I tell you, both of them faced the status quo, both of them faced hardship, both of them were minority in number, both of them became successful, both of them Allah empowered them, both of them were able to defeat their enemies. True? Ibrahim, Ashabul Kahf, Allah honors. Allah Jalla wa Ala is sending a powerful message to you and I and all our youth Trust me. Associate yourself with me. Worship me. Speak to me. Communicate with me. Don't obey anyone other than me that I have not allowed for them to be obeyed, and I will look after you. And I will protect you. And I will nurture you. Yes, what a beautiful lesson from the Holy Quran. The question that many communities, though, when they study Islamic history and the Quran, is very well, it is beautiful that the youth are going through this exciting stage in their lives, that Allah praises them with their potential, with the opportunity to enhance, to become excellent human beings, no doubt, both males and females. Yet why is it that there is a struggle? Why is it that when it comes to our programs, other than the first 10 nights of Muharram, our youth in some communities don't necessarily take part? Why are they not attending mosque or taking part in Islamic activities? What is the problem? In order to analyze this, we need to look at the challenges that our youth are going through. Because if you were to ask some of the youth today, they would say to you, these challenges are not being addressed. I am going through a number of problems, a number of conflicts, a number of obstacles in my life. When it comes to the mosque, maybe it is not addressing them. Maybe it is not solving them. Maybe it is not offering me solutions for them. We will talk about some other issues of why some of our youth not attending. But when it comes to some of the challenges, let's look at a few, and no doubt these are not comprehensive. You and I may be thinking of so many others, but I would like to just pick on some based on my experience of working with the youth. One of the first is what? Is the recognition that parents, unfortunately, have not understood, some, that when it comes to youth, it is not when they turn 14, 15 that we need to start paying attention. Is when they're young. What do you mean? When I speak to parents today, they say to me, you know what is the solution for the youth? I say to them, what? They say M&Ms. You know M&Ms? Some say it's this chocolate with the peanut. Very nice. They say the solution to the youth is M&Ms. I say to them, what does M&M mean? Mimbar and madrasa. I am very busy. My wife is busy. Maulana, what are you doing from the mimbar? Madrasa, what is it doing? Why is my youth who is 16 saying, I don't believe in God anymore? Aren't you doing your job? When it comes to parents, may Allah bless them. Allah has honored them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed the status of parents so high in Islam. Why? Because it is them who ensure that the children are brought up, and this tarbiyah is of the utmost importance. You say, yes brother, from the young age I taught my son or daughter to pray and to wear hijab, but look at them today. I say, you know why the problem is? Instead of forcing them to wear hijab or to pray, you may not have developed a close affinity with them, became friends with them, communicated with them, went out with them, went to a football game with them, became close with them, so they would not open up to you. Tarbiyah is not only teaching them Islam. Tarbiyah is developing a relationship with your son and daughter. When it comes to this is something that we have to highlight. And may Allah bless our parents. You know, they need training sometimes. This might hurt some people. Who says that this tarbiyah of children and upbringing is today very easy? We need courses, we need seminars, we need conferences, we need papers, we need think tanks, we need tools like apps. We can't have enough of them. For all these challenges, for all the problems, we have to wake up before it's too late. Our parents are suffering. These, may Allah bless the husbands and the wives. They want to make sure their children, the youth, are brought up in the right way, but they need as much support as possible. Yes, and one of the ways to support is to create these groups. Yes, some of the families, some of the parents can create smaller groups. 5 or 6 families come together, discuss common problems. How did you deal with an issue that your son or daughter had? What do you think we should be doing? How do we provide practical solutions to these challenges? Number one, another area some of the youth complain about, and it is a burning issue within them, is marriage, no doubt. What do we mean? We mean today, whether it's at university or college, our youth see others having boyfriend, girlfriends. Social media, people, relationship open, yes? When it comes to Netflix, internet, movies, Hollywood, Bollywood, illicit, illegitimate relationships. And what? That desire that is within them that Allah has given them becomes incredibly what? Incredibly strong. And then they begin to struggle. In many different setups, there is a struggle. You ask me, what is the solution? Of course, the religion of Islam has presented marriage as a solution, without a shadow of a doubt, yes? But marriage needs to be simplified in the idea that today marriage has become somehow slightly complicated. Complicated because of two things. Number one, many of the youth, you speak to them, they say, I love my mother, I respect my mother. But you know, I want to find a husband or wife myself. I don't want her to find one for me, some say. There is nothing wrong with the mother saying to her son and to her daughter, by the way, Allahu Akbar. Some people say, be careful, don't say this from the minbar. Our sisters, when they wish to get married, why can't they ask their father or their mother, find me someone I wish to get married? Because we may have an epidemic in our communities. I have visited, alhamdulillah, Allah has blessed me, this minbar of Hussain, every corner around the world, from North America to Australia, to Europe, to Africa. And I meet communities. Do you know what the problems we have? We have some of our sisters, many who are in their 30s, they're waiting for the door to knock. Who takes this responsibility? Culture takes this responsibility. Maulana, no. This man has to propose. How is it? This is not part of religion. I say to them, do you know better or Khadijat al-Kubra? No, Maulana, Khadija 1400 years ago, things have moved on, subhanallah. Did you know that the mother of Sayyid al-Bashar, Amina, Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayha, the mother of the Holy Prophet of Islam, also proposed to Abdullah? If the mother and the wife proposed, who are we to say that we are not supposed to do it? And therefore we must not discourage our youngsters from marriage if they feel they're in the stage to get married. Now some people say, but it's very expensive, they need to have a house, they need to have a car, they need to have a job, otherwise what? It would be difficult. Number one, may Allah bless those sisters who do not place high dowries and mahar. And some people think by placing very high dowries, it is as if what? They're being smart or safeguarding the future of our ladies. No. Dowries must not necessarily be very small, but something respectful. Yes, for example, we have the dowry of Sayyidatun Nisa and Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhima. This dowry is what? 480 dinar. You can do $480. For example, just as an example. Yes? But this thousands that some people are asking for, hundreds of thousands, once in a nikah I did that I freaked out. Yes? Why is this? Allah will hold us accountable. Number one. Number two, the other challenge that some of our youth are having with regards to marriage is finding the right person. So we need to facilitate. You ask me how? In the United Kingdom, under the supervision of one of my teachers who is a mujtahid, Ayatollah Milani, Hafidhahullah, he gave us permission. What do? This is a model that can be developed with the supervision of ulama. And that is to have programs in which sisters and brothers are attending. And sometimes they sit in the same table, in the most modest and the most respectful and controlled environment. But the program is not necessarily matchmaking. Program discusses some issues relating to marriage, issues related to development of youth. And they begin to see who's available. They begin to have a discussion, very formal discussion, yes, under the supervision of ulama, where later on, if they're interested in someone, they can ask the alim or the other facilitators, for example, is this person available or that person available? Yes? In the recognition that we need to start thinking outside the box. We mustn't just stay the way it was 50 or 60 years ago, but rather empower our youth to say, you know what, Islam has solutions. As long as it is Sharia compliant matchmaking, spouse selection, then there is no problem with it. Number one. Number two, of great importance as far as the challenges that some of our youth are confronting, is the ideological warfare. Please pay attention to this. Today, many of the youth are struggling because they're bombarded with thoughts and ideas. Questions: atheism. Why is God not stopping evil? Questions: why do we need to follow a marja? Can we follow more than one marja or not? Questions relating to what? Relating to why does Islam have a position against homosexuality? Questions regarding evolution, and so many other issues. It is one of the reasons why some of the youth may not attend mosque, is because we have perhaps placed too much attention on the majalis. What do we mean? Majalis must continue. The remembrance of Ahl al-Bayt must stay alive. But we need courses and workshops, because majalis are what? Are a monologue, and they're pedagogic. What does that mean? It means I am speaking down to people. Whereas you need interactive discussions, you need courses, you need these interactive workshops in which the youth is able to express that at college and university, these are the challenges I'm having. Please answer my questions, so that these learned individuals will be able to have a heart-to-heart conversation. There is a feminist movement out there that's saying this is nonsense, that there is this thing called hijab and it's wajib. And some of our sisters and brothers are falling into their traps. Therefore, the intellectual discourse needs to be raised. Number one. Number two, we need to give feedback to the ulama and to our resident alim and to anybody in our communities as to what is it that the youth want. Do surveys, questionnaires. My dear young brother or sister, what do you want to hear from the minbar? What are the topics that would attract you? What are the challenges that you want addressed? Not only from the minbar, but also through other interactive programs. This empowerment is of the utmost importance. That is the second area. The third area is addiction. And please pay attention to this. Many Muslim communities, sadly, are going through waves of some of the youth hooked up to illegal drugs such as cocaine and heroin and ecstasy, as well as prescription medications such as Valium, for example, and certain opioids. And you'll see that they suffer in silence in many ways. This addiction and substance abuse has to be addressed through different ways. Number one, why is it occurring? Some of our youth sadly turn towards substance abuse because of mental health challenges, anxiety, depression. Some of them because of life circumstances. Sometimes they are victims of abuse themselves. Sometimes they've had a very traumatic experience. Sometimes they're in the wrong place at the wrong time. They become weak in the face of peer pressure. And so they start using these drugs. How do we approach this subject? Number one, those who are going through this challenge, those who are, for example, addicted to drugs or alcohol, for example, we must not shame them. We must not reject them. We must look at them with empathy, understanding. Bring them back slowly. Support programs that exist out there for their rehabilitation. Yes? Don't think that somebody who's hooked up on drugs is what? Is somehow gone astray in the sense that there is no hope for them. Wallah, sometimes we are so judgmental. I say to my sisters and brothers, leave the judgment to Allah. Let us sort our problems. Who are we to judge this young man, this young woman? They may going through hardship in their lives. Support initiatives such as one that exists here in Dar es Salaam that looks after the substance abuse. Yes? People who are going through drug addiction. Yes? Don't necessarily consider it as a taboo. Consider them as people who are potentials. Number one. Number two, education is key. What do we mean? We have to speak to our youth and have these dialogues through these programs to highlight the dangers of drugs. What do these drugs result? Yes, they may give you a high, but this high is devastating. This high would cause you many physical problems, mental problems. Sometimes you become suicidal. Many a times what? Many a times you lose hope in this world. You lose your way. Today scientists have shown, behavioral experts have recognized that even if those who start on weed or cannabis, it's a what? It's a gateway drug. It moves them towards what? Towards other substances of abuse. Therefore, we need to have these conversations. We need to have this education and raise awareness when it comes to our youth, when it comes to addiction. The other issue that some of our youth are facing is the world of the internet and social media. Allahu Akbar. You know, there are terms today such as keyboard mujahid. Have you come across it? Who is a keyboard mujahid? Somebody who is online 24 hours a day. I don't know when they sleep. They comment on every post. They tweet every moment. They feel it's their responsibility to give opinions on everything. You know, my favorite comment, which hurts me but I smile. And I saw one yesterday, just in case you think this is a talk from 50 years ago. Yesterday I saw somebody post a question. Are we allowed, for example, to brush our teeth in the month of Ramadan when we are fasting? Subhanallah. I look, these maraji, I've never heard of them. One of them says, I think you're allowed, but I'm not sure. Maybe it's best to go and ask your marja. Then why are you saying? What value are you adding on internet? Yes, the challenges that some of our youth are going through. Instagram, Snapchat, where some of them, you know, there is a competition. Who has the best picture of a mishkaki? My mother does a better biryani. There is no harm if we use anything and the tools that we have moderately, yes. But today, the world of social media has gripped our youth. Some of them are hooked on it. Yes, I ask you, if you say to some of our youth, please, 1 week, no Instagram. Allahu Akbar, you're close to World War III. How can I? No Instagram for a week. They're itching. They're on a flight, no Wi-Fi. As soon as they land, everybody is itching. WhatsApp, yes, Facebook. When it comes to this, we have to nurture amongst our youth that which we call akhlaq. The akhlaq of a believer online. Because whether you're online or offline, you are governed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's instructions. Meaning that when you and I conduct ourselves on social media, on certain platforms, there has to be a monitor. There has to be control on what we say and what we do and how we interact with others. This needs to be also brought forward as awareness amongst a number of other things. And the final thing that I would like to discuss amongst the challenges, and there are so many, is the identity crisis that some of our youth are facing. What do we mean? There are many who ask the question, am I a Khoja, Shia, British, Muslim? Can I be all these? Can I be an American, Tanzanian, Shi'i, Ithna Ashari, Khoja? All these identities, can they go hand in hand? There are suggestions today that there is a what? An identity crisis out there. Yes? Identity crisis that needs to be addressed. We must look at our youth with great hope and potential and give them a boost through the number of things that I will tell you now. 5 steps to become Hussaini youth. Amongst many, this is not a comprehensive, but the first was demonstrated on the eve of Ashura by Sayyid al-Shuhada, Aba Abdullah Al-Hussain, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. There was commotion. All of a sudden, there was a man who was the ambassador from the army of Umar ibn Sa'ad, approached the army of Imam alayhi salam. When Imam looked at him and says, what do you want? He says, we have received instructions from our leader, Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad. You either submit to us or we kill you. Imam alayhi salam answered in the most beautiful of ways, in a mesmerizing line that gives us the first quality of becoming a Hussaini youth. ألا أن الدعي ابن الدعي قد ركز بين اثنتين بين السلة والذلة وهيهات من الذلة. He says, verily, the son of so-and-so has given us an option, is giving us an ultimatum between humiliation and death, and we will never humiliate ourselves. Hayhat min al-dhillah. What does this mean? My dear sisters and brothers, today our youth are missing self-esteem, self-worth, self-identity. We need to pump them with izzah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, do you want that izzah, that recognition? Because they're looking for it outside. The cosmetic industry spending billions around the world to make females look amazing so that others say, you look amazing. Allah says, don't worry about everyone. You want izzah, you want everyone to recognize you, to understand who you are, to give you strength. I give it to you. فَإِنَّ الْعِزَّةَ لِلَّهِ جَمِيعًا. To him belongs this izzah. Yes? This recognition is important. Why? Because today we live in a world where sometimes we may humiliate ourselves, seeking the blessing of others, seeking the green light from others. The youth need to appreciate this notion. To become youthful who are Hussaini, we need to listen to the words of Ahl al-Bayt, such as Imam As-Sadiq, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. Listen to this. إن الله يباهي الشاب العابد للملائكة. Allah shows off the youth who is attaching himself to Allah and is a worshipper of Allah to the malaika, and says, انظروا إلى عبدي ترك شهوته من أجلي. Look at my servant. He has abandoned his desires because of me. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants that izzah and karamah, wants that recognition, yes, given to our youth. Therefore, what as parents, as leaders, as scholars, as muballighin, as activists in society we have to do is nurture that feeling of self-worth amongst our sisters and brothers. We must not degrade them. We must not tell them that you are nothing. Each and every one of them is special. I say to them from Mimbar al-Hussain, you are special. You are Hussaini. You're chosen on the path of Allah, on the path of Quran. You are Muhammadi, Alawi, Hassani, Hussaini. You are Mahdawi. Don't give this association away. Wallah, it's an honor that people for 1400 years ago gave their lives for. And we are honored to be one of them. To become a true Hussaini. Every time there is a temptation, I say, hayhat min al-dhillah. I will not humiliate myself before Allah and follow shaitan. Number one, the second area of great importance to become Hussaini, please focus on this, is haya, modesty, chastity. What do we mean? Sadly, in a world plagued with immorality, whereby it is so easy to look at things on the internet or on the television which is abhorrent, which is what? Demoralizing. Sometimes some of us are losing this notion of haya. What does haya mean? Haya means to be shamed and embarrassed before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Ahl al-Bayt have said, لا دين لمن لا حياة له ولا حياة لمن لا دين له. If you do not have religion, then you do not have haya. And if you do not have haya, you do not have religion. Ahl al-Bayt have come forward and said beautifully, Amir al-Mu'mineen wa Mawla al-Muttaqeen Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. أفضل الحياء استحياؤك من الله. The best haya is to always remember Allah is watching us. The way we speak to the opposite gender, the way we speak to our elders, the way that we approach many aspects in society, in the community, we have to be always cognizant. We are under the watchful eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Alam ya'lam anna Allah yara. Don't you know that Allah is watching? This haya is sometimes missing. And you know, this will please the sisters, because often we pick on them, but let me pick on the brothers. I say to the brother who is posting this picture on Instagram of him on the beach only wearing shorts, showing his six-pack, I say to him, brother, keep this for your wife or the malaika. This notion that just because there is no such thing as a physical hijab for our brothers should not give them the green light to lose that shamefulness and present themselves in such a manner online. No doubt, this also applies to our sisters, in the idea that sisters who put on so much makeup and take pictures, these selfies next to mirror, Allahu Akbar, I don't know what is the story. This idea is what? Is indicative, sadly, of us losing that feeling of embarrassment. I have to understand hijab is there to protect me. Hijab is there to honor me. Hijab is there not to draw attention towards me. So, that recognition is of the utmost importance. The third quality of a youthful Hussaini is what? Is to empower their hearts with light. What do you mean? Today, you ask many bookshop keepers, librarians, are people reading books? They say no. Are youth purchasing books? No. What happened to our search for knowledge? What happened to our dedication to improve our understanding of our religion? Despite the fact that information is what is overloading around us, we are what? We are encapsulated with so much knowledge. Perhaps arguably today, our youth are reading much less than before. They are constantly distracted. If they pick up a book, they won't last what? A minute or two when they go to their phones. We need a systematic program of ensuring that our youth are enlightened with ulum. What does this mean? Means that the books that are available for our youth should speak their language, translated well, for example, from Arabic and other languages, should address their problems. And if it is difficult to read for the youth, let them do these book clubs. Let them collectively, as a group of individuals, come together in order to what? In order to enrich each other with ulum. What about the Holy Quran, you ask me? What is the relationship of the youth with the Quran? Many of the youth come forward and say, I don't understand the Quran. It's very difficult for me to grasp the Quran. It's in a different language. I can't connect with it. I can't necessarily love it. Yes? The sixth holy Imam, peace and blessings be upon him, says what? He says, if you're a youth and you recite the Quran and you allow it to penetrate your heart, it will mix with your blood and your flesh. اختلط القرآن مع لحمه ودمه, the Imam says. He says, if you're a youth and you do this, because there is great potential when you're young and you recite the Quran and you ponder over the Quran. Somebody asked the question, very well, I know of the importance of the Quran. I know it's the most important book of guidance in my life, but I can't connect with it. What are the solutions? Number one, we need digital content that get people close to the Quran. What do you mean? Tafsir, for example, that are available on apps, on YouTube, short, bite size. Yes? We need sources like apps and what? Small pamphlets or things that are interesting, bringing the Quran from a different perspective, but at the same time giving the message of the Quran, making people live the Quran, making people act the Quran in every sense of the word. I tell you, how many Quran academies or institutes do we have in the Shia world? You ask me, what do you mean? I say dedicated towards studying the Quran, but not only to producing classical works, which are important, but to think outside the box and to invite those youth and say, why are you so distant from Quran and religion? What would make you interested? Because you know why? We are leading and living our lives in media war. The media outside is doing everything to make secularism and non-religious activity attractive. Isn't it very nice and easy to sit there and watch hours binge watching Netflix? Isn't it? It's become so simple to turn away our backs from teachings of religion. We need to counteract this movement. We need to do what? Live up with the times. Rise with the challenge and offer practical solutions. Don't necessarily expect and wait for others to do it. If you have an idea, develop it. If you have an idea, rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ask for the wasil of Ahl al-Bayt and go for it. because you are safeguarding the lives of not only your youth, but thousands around the world. Their spiritual development is the fourth criteria when it comes to what? When it comes to Hussaini youth. What do we mean? We mean today when you speak to many of the youth, they say what? When I am with others, I don't remember Allah. I am afraid of the peer pressure. I am not necessarily proud to identify myself as a believer, as somebody who practices. Sometimes there is a stigma out there. Why? Because perhaps we have not developed understanding of what spirituality is. Did you know, a few years ago, many of the Khoja communities around the world were asked in this project known as Project North Star. Many of the Jama'ats, they were asked, are you feeling spiritual? 80% said no, we don't feel spirituality. Of the Jama'ats across the world. I say to them, what does it mean to be spiritual? Is it to be on this buraq, you know, this somehow flying? Is this what spiritual actually means? Have we addressed this through discussion and programs which enable people to go through understanding of stages to become closely connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to have that experience of serenity and indeed what? And indeed tranquility. And the fifth point very briefly, and that is we need to encourage our youth, and some of them, may Allah bless them, they're doing this. But to become a Hussaini youth, we need to nurture within them the love and the dedication to serve others and to be active in society, to use their energy. And that's why we need to empower them. And one of the problems that youth face when they're not coming to the mosque is that they feel that this program is not necessarily adhered to them, or they don't have a voice. We need to give them voices. We need to sit them, include them in management committees. Make sure that feedback is taken from them. And especially our sisters, may Allah bless them. I say this with full conviction. From evidence of working at university level with many youth organizations, when sisters are dedicated, and they are, mashallah, they will put the effort, they will get involved, they're eager to make a difference. Who is Hussain, for example? Was not started by the elderly, may Allah bless them. Perhaps it is supported financially by some of our elderly. But I remember in the early stages, these youth in London, they said, we want the world to know who Aba Abdullah is. And we will start small. Today they have representatives in over 60 places, countries around the world, inviting Muslims and non-Muslims to the eternal legacy of Aba Abdullah. And this is just one example of how youth can be empowered, can be driven, can be supported, can be pushed. We need to push them. We mustn't limit their abilities. We need to give them whatever is necessary. Time. We need to psychologically help them, and financially as well. That's why one of the most important ways to become a Hussaini youth is to look at the youth of Karbala. The youth who are mesmerized by Aba Abdullah. There are some youth that you and I know about and have heard much, such as the son of the holy second Imam Al-Qasim alayhi afdalu salatu wassalam. But there are some of the youth that perhaps we have not come across, perhaps we have not recognized. You ask me a question, how many on the 10th of Muharram with Imam Al-Hussain were youth? How many? According to different narrations, if we sit there and look at the Sahaba of Imam alayhi salam and his Ahl al-Bayt, it is likely that at least over 50 of those who fought and attained martyrdom with Imam were youth. 50. Karbala was established on the dedication of these young men and women. It was established on their sacrifice and their loyalty. One of them, his name is Abu Bakr ibn Ali radwanullahi ta'ala alayhi. Because Amir al-Mu'mineen had 7 sons who were martyred on the 10th of Muharram. How many? 7. 4 are the sons of al-Baneen. Yes, from al-Baneen. One of his names is called Yahya ibn Ali. Another is called whom? Muhammad ibn Ali, also known as Abu Bakr. And the 7th is Sayyid Shuhada, the master of the martyrs. This young man, was what? Was defending Rasulullah, his father, Amir al-Mu'mineen, and Sayyid al-Shuhada. Why was he called Abu Bakr? It was a title given back to him later. His actual name is Muhammad, because Amir al-Mu'mineen had 3 sons by the name of Muhammad. One of them is Muhammad ibn Hanafiya, yes? This one was Muhammad al-Asghar, the young Muhammad, and people, in order to distinguish him, would give him the title Abu Bakr. This man came before Abu Abdullah al-Hussain, a young man, looked at him and says, Akhi ya Hussain, you're my brother. I am thinking, what can I give to you? I want to give something to you, but I cannot think of anything more worthy than my soul and my body. Here I am, I wish to give it for your sake. Accept me. Accept me as a fighter, as a warrior, and who will sacrifice his life for you. And so he attained Shahada. And so he attained martyrdom. To join those group of youth who believed in their Lord. And Allah increased them in guidance on the 10th of Muharram. But the first amongst them was whom? Amongst the youth of Bani Hashim. Was a man who reminded not only his family, but all those on the plains of Karbala of Rasulullah. He not only looked like Rasulullah, he spoke like Rasulullah. He behaved like Rasulullah. I ask you, many a times when those fighters and warriors, they come before Imam Hussain, he what? He says to them, go back. Maybe it is not the right time. But there was one man who stood before his father, and the only thing his father did said to him the following. He says to him, Bunay alay ilayya ilay. Come towards me. Ashimmuka wa tashimmuni. I would like to embrace you, and I want you to embrace me. It was the wada' for Ali al-Akbar and Abu Abdullah. They embraced each other. And you know what the Imam would then say? He would raise his hands to the heavens. Allahumma shhad ala ha'ula'i al-qawm. فإنهم قد برز إليهم غلام أشبه الناس برسولك صلى الله عليه وآله خلقا وخلقا ومنطقا وكنا إذا اشتقنا إلى رسولك نظرنا إليه. Imam says, Ya Allah, be a witness. This man reminds us of Rasulullah. Every time we wish to look at Rasulullah, we remember Rasulullah, we look at Ali al-Akbar. Ya Allah, punish them on this earth. Ya Allah, send your la'na upon them. Ali al-Akbar bids farewell to his family members, marches towards the battlefield. Lion of Allah, like a moon shining, emerges before the enemies, fights in such a manner that people said it is as if Ali ibn Abi Talib was on the battlefield, not Ali al-Akbar, but the mothers out there tonight. This musibah is for the mothers, yes? The mothers who may have lost their children, the mothers who have not seen their children, and the mothers who pray to Allah, Ya Allah, don't let us leave this world and our children have died before us, because tonight we remember that lady by the name of Layla. That Layla wanted to see her son. That Layla was anticipating her son, but she could not see where he was on the battlefield. When she came out, all she can do was monitor the expressions of Abu Abdullah. When that moment when Imam's face changed, Layla cried out, Sayyidi ya Hussain, has my Akbar been affected badly? Has my Akbar been hurt in any way? Imam said, oh Layla, a man has emerged. He is about to fight him. I am worried that he might hurt my Akbar. That moment it is as if Layla is saying, I wish to see him again. Can I actually do something? Ya Abu Abdullah, is there a deed that I can do so that I see my Ali again? Imam says, if you want to, go back to your tent. Ask Allah sincerely. You're the mother. Your dua is answered before Allah. But Layla, you know what she did? She goes back to the tent. She sits on her prayer mat. She removes her hijab. Then she raises her hands. Layla knows what to ask Allah with. What is the code to ask Allah? She says, Ilahi bi ghurbat al-Hussain. Ilahi, Hussain is alone on the plains of Karbala. He is ghareeb. I beg you, bring me my son Ali. You are the one who returned Yusuf to Yaqub. I beg you, Ya Allah, return my Ali towards me. Ali al-Akbar finishes that enemy combatant. He is thirsty. He is suffering. He comes back to his father. Abata, hal min sharbati ma. Have you found any water, my father? I wish to gain strength. I wish to go back and fight. Imam Hussain says, my son Ali, be strong, be patient, for your grandfather will quench your thirst on the day of Qiyam. When you attain Shahada, you will get it also. But your mother is waiting for you. Oh Ali, go and pay respects towards her. When Ali al-Akbar enters the tent, he finds his mother unconscious on the ground. He sits next to his mother. He finally sees his mother Layla. Then the tears from the eyes of Ali fall on the cheeks of Layla. Layla wakes up. She looks at Ali. She wonders, is this a dream or a reality? Oh, my son Ali, have you returned? Have you returned? Yes, my mother. Yes, I'm here before you. What would you like me to do? Layla says, Allahu Akbar. Listen to what Layla asks. She says, my son Ali, one thing I want you to do for me. He says, what is it? She says, I want you just to stand up. I want you to stand up before me. Allahu Akbar. Why, my mother Layla? Why? She says, oh, my son Ali, I want to see your body healthy and intact. Because I know in a few minutes I will see your body torn into pieces. Allahu Akbar. Ali al-Akbar leaves. This is the final wada'. He goes towards the battlefield, submissive to Allah, remembering Allah, patient with the decree of Allah. The enemies surround him. One man said, I will never live until I make his father mourn for him. They said, what is it that you're going to do? He said, I will wait to see. At that moment, ajarakum Allah, when Ali al-Akbar was busy fighting the enemy, a man comes and strikes him on his head. When he strikes him on his head with a sword, he falls onto the horse's face. Blood pours from the face of Ali al-Akbar. It goes on the face of the horse. Instead of taking him towards Imam Hussain, the horse is blinded. He takes him further towards the campsite of Yazid. Ajarakum Allah, Ya Rasul Allah, Ya Ali. They surround his body. One man stabs him on his neck. A third person strikes him on his chest. A fourth person hits a rock on his body until he falls on the ground. Ya Abata wa Hussain. He calls his father Aba Abdullah al-Hussain. Imam al-Hussain hears that his son Ali al-Akbar has just called him. He leaves the campsite, but Hussain leaves on the opposite direction. His daughter Sakina says, my father Ali, why do you go this way? My brother Ali's body is this way. He says to her, my daughter, don't blame me. My heart is broken when I heard my Ali. The poet says, when Aba Abdullah was walking towards Ali al-Akbar, he turned towards Najaf. He cried out, my father Ali, oh Ali, you had to dislodge the gates of Khaybar, but you never had to pick up the body. You never had to pick up the body of your son. Alayka minni salam. When he sits down next to Ali al-Akbar. Ala dunya ba'daka al-afa. Oh my son Ali, what is the worth of this dunya? Living without you. You call me and I cannot answer you, or I come to you but can't save you. Allahu Akbar. At that moment, Ali al-Akbar is seen smiling on one side and sorrowful on another. Yes, Imam Hussain. How can a heart like Hussain bear to say farewell to his son Ali al-Akbar? Yes, at that moment when he sits next to Ali al-Akbar, the poet says, it's as if he is saying to Ali al-Akbar, don't go, hold on just for a few moments, let me look at you, let me speak to you. But what Ali al-Akbar said next broke the heart of Hussain. He says, Father, Father, on my right I see Rasulullah, I see him quenching my thirst, but on my left I see my grandmother Fatima. She's slapping her cheeks, she's striking her head, she's crying, Wa Hussaina, Wa Walada, Wa Shahida. I ask you, whenever Abdullah heard the name of his beloved mother Fatima, the poet says, it's as if he said, say to my mother Fatima, I've lost my son Ali, I am losing my brother Abbas, I have lost my nephew Qasim. I beg you, mother, don't look at my infant child, don't look at the sword, don't look at the arrow. Oh son, I won't look at your Asghar, but I lost my Muhsin.